attacks every day can be stressful, but don't worry. McAfee Total Protection is here to help you live a worry-free life online. What does worry-free mean? Well, it means you won't have to wonder if that text message is a scam, if new threats will pop up on your PC, or if you're safe from identity theft. Visit McAfee.com/online protection today to get a winning online protection for just $39.99 your first year. That's McAfee.com/online protection. Cancel anytime. Terms apply.
I ate that.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. There's nothing sweeter than baking cookies during the holidays. Prime, I get all my ingredients delivered right to my door, fast and free, no last-minute store trips needed. And of course, I bless my favorite holiday playlist on Amazon Music. It's the ultimate soundtrack for creating unforgettable memories. From streaming to shopping, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into.
Hello, Sean. How are you?
Welcome in episode number 5. Here we are on another unidentified alien podcast.
Hola, ¿cómo
right
estás?
here with Karen Curtis over there. Karen, how are you?
I'm well. I just...
Oh, you
Oh, so funny.
That's what this.
It's the illogism derived from
No, that's good. That's what we do. This podcast is video experts. And today is really something for episode 5. It's kind of like a landmark episode,
It
right?
is. Yes.
So we're going to tackle something here that we haven't done yet, because mostly what we've done is
Pick
go
wood.
over some of the biggest,
You wanna go
most
to work with
interesting,
me,
mysterious
Drew?
happenings in UFO issue ever since Congress came out with a report about
No.
UFOs and the
No, okay.
classifieds and things. Basically saying they don't know what they are, but they're not sure if they're alien. And they only went back to 2004 now. So we thought, my gosh, there was so much they left out. And of course, some things that we've already covered with, like Rangers of the Forest and Rangers Air Force Base, Operation High Jump, not Roosevelt, Eisenhower's New York aliens. And now
Where are you
we're going
at?
to do something different, and that is abductions.
Right. You think UFO sightings are just a modern phenomenon, but did you know that the Puritans were the first to record strange shining lights in American skies in
Yes.
1639?
So that's the first recorded one, unless if you want to go back to ancient times with cave paintings and things like that.
Right.
Outside of that, I guess you could say in these modern times, if you will, 500 years ago, compared to world history, that's modern times.
Yeah, so John Winthrop, the governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, he recounted a great light in the night sky of the Charles River.
How about
It was
that?
part of the Bridgewater Triangle. I don't know if you know about this, but it's a territory of southeastern Massachusetts.
Ready?
Reports of paranormal happenings occur,
Okay.
including sightings of UFOs, Bigfoot, ghostly panthers,
Yeah.
giant birds, and fiendish dogs.
That sounds like a whole other episode right there on its own. That would be good stuff. Because, it goes for history. The last people that presidents aliens, one that we left out,
Nashville. Oh, I'm in Utah. How am I going to pick you up?
Say that one.
Interesting. Did you know ENTs that were made of
That's a far drive, but I mean, that'd be a fun
He was not a
one.
I've seen mostly of the grays.
When I say tall, I'm not talking 6 feet. I'm talking very tall, 10 feet tall.
Usually about 3 or 4 feet tall. Real big, almond-shaped, white eyes.
Face was oval. The being itself could have been more than 3 feet tall. It was sitting cross-legged at the top left-hand corner of my bed.
Have you ever had that? Have you ever had sleep paralysis?
I've had sleep paralysis, but not to the point where you have sightings, so to speak. Some people have, you think it's nightmares. I don't know what the first thing is for sleep paralysis, but
I saw something at the end of my bed. I had it, and I thought it was my mom's.
Oh gosh.
It was terrifying.
It's scary. And you hear the different descriptions there. You can see I'm going to this place, so you can prove that to your reptilians. You talk about the short grays. You talk about some species really called, they've actually put their with the tall whites.
Some of them say they're praying mantis. They look like a praying mantis.
Yeah, I've heard that one before as well. So there's obviously different species out there that's, sightings.
In the Nordics, that Eisenhower.
That's right. Yep. You've got Nordic spirits. We can go back to episode 4 here about that.
Yeah.
But on these, it's really interesting because just on a couple of these cases that we're reading today, because we could do a 2-hour episode, honestly. There's so many abduction stories. One of them, there's a guy named Travis Walton.
Yes.
Had a really detailed abduction story, but we're not going to go through that one for us today.
We have one that was local from South Florida. We've got Betty and Barney Rubble. No, I mean Hill.
That's right.
But before we get there, I want to lay the groundwork in terms of this guy, Dr. John Mack, who's a professor of psychiatry at Harvard Medical School. And he's a lot similar to Brian Weiss, Dr. Brian Weiss, who went to Yale and picked up Mount Sinai Psychiatric Division. And he started to arrest them, and he realized he wrote many legendary masters. Some of these abductees are hypnotized in order to get to the story. So there's some suggestion that these people are suggestible because of the hypnosis. But this guy at Harvard Medical School has written a book on this because he saw so many patients that were saying the same things. He said this.
This happened to these people is what they say has happened to them. Even though I fully recognize that's not possible. Which they and I were raised. No idea how they were raised. They seem to come across every socioeconomic. They seem to be, this is kind of paradoxical, since I was talked about it, and this is psychopathology. They seem to be unusually mentally sound. They seem to be people who are particularly strong, stable, minded.
So, yeah, and as with Dr. Weiss, the past life before
Right now, unfortunately, get the stigma attached to it. It's crazy. That guy who says, life was abducted by aliens, and they get discarded.
Exactly.
That's why a lot of sightings stories or abduction stories never really reported because they're afraid that we can do it.
Exactly. And some people that's what happened with that. But Dr. Mack, he's a Pulitzer Prize-winning best-selling author. He also wrote abductions, and he's dead.
Oh, that
He died in London in 2004. He was 74. He was hit by a drunk driver, a drunk alien.
yeah, but he'd be
But he wanted everybody to know that this shit is real.
To me, this is utterly not possible. First of all, I've been right about it. This grew out of the experiences of the case that was in the case, so it was not like believing. I came cautiously, reluctantly, gradually to take this seriously. So I did. The source of this is where these beings are, where they come from, creates this intelligence. There's something profound, important, that is authentic.
because there's so many layers. So lead us in here.
I shall. So they are a New Hampshire couple. They claim to have been abducted in 1961 and taken aboard an alien space.
Hell yeah.
Here's
This light stopped directly in front of us. The car on the
Carl, what are you doing
At
on
that
this?
point, I realized that they undoubtedly trying to take us on board.
so they had lost time. It was 2 hours.
2 hours.
And the car was 35 miles from where I took them up.
Yeah, it was down the road.
So Betty famously drew a star map from
right.
memory in 1964 under psychoanalysis, I think hypnosis. And the map supposedly showed the sky as seen from a planet orbiting the star Zeta Reticuli,
Yes.
from which the alien abductor had arrived. So it's, there's entangled particles and like particles the other one's billion light years away. This is what it's called the Zeta Reticuli incident.
So, you want to be a marketer. It's easy. You just have to score a ton of leads and figure out a way to turn them into customers. But, okay, fine. It's a lot of spent. But with HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools, launching benchmark-breaking campaigns is easier than ever. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
At McDonald's, our customers' well-being is at the heart of what we do. From how we source our food to how we deliver quality in our restaurants. And it's made possible by thousands of hardworking crew, suppliers, and the small business owners who own and operate our restaurants. Every day we help them meet the highest standards for our customers. Our commitment will never change. We will always do the right thing.
This leave your personal info in places that could expose you to identity theft. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, their U.S.-based restoration specialist will fix it. Guaranteed or save up to 40% your first year. Visit life.com/podcast.
Hey guys, back to the playground again, huh?
Yep.
Stuck on your little gas pedal. But got a diesel behind me. Just come on.
It wasn't something that was talked about a lot. If you would only know about the star system if you were into stars, if you were some type of astronomer. And so there was no reason for her to know this,
It's very obscure.
especially for her to be able to draw the map. She drew the map exactly on how the star system actually is in the sky. So
And there's a planet with those two stars?
there is, and she actually drew lines as well. And she asked the alien what it was lines. She explained that the alien told her the lines were basically what they traveled. Essentially like program is what they had mapped to other
Wow.
planets. So again, this is something that you know, Betty Hill, a woman in 1961 in New Hampshire, is drawing these detailed star maps of the star system that nobody is talking about if you're just a normal person. And she's getting it to be dead on. I mean, they put it up against Constellation star map and it was dead on. So how was she able to do that?
And I do believe that when Betty and Barney came forward, they were kind of dismissed. But
Yes.
what happened was they had to be regressed, as we're talking about, and here was part of it.
They had tracked an unidentified craft at 2:14 a.m. to Travitat. We estimate that the UFO left.
They developed a series of models, and as a result of that, ufologists thought that it should rest logically trying to see if
So you hear that there, that was, it's a little extreme, but we wanted to play that for you. That was the actual recording of the regression therapy session.
Very upsetting.
And you hear Betty and Barney Hill there basically, you know, reliving what they saw, being scared, obviously, during their abduction. And Barney Hill recalls seeing figures in the windows as the UFO approached. So it's a chilling case, it's a fascinating case, and it's one that, for me, has stuck with me since I heard it, you know, years ago. It's totally fascinating.
What's even more fascinating is what is interracial.
That was the thing about this too that made it tougher because let's just face it, to be honest with you, it's 1961 in the Northeast and they're an interracial couple. So like, it wasn't hard enough to just come out and say that you're abducted by aliens. You're an interracial couple in 1961 who has to come out and claim this. So a harder situation, you know, hard situation got harder than that.
Yeah. Either way, they're heroic. I think it's fantastic that they came out with their story and they stuck with it. And we're talking about it today in 2021.
And the other intriguing thing about this, Karen, because we have a local guy actually coming up next. This is a fascinating story out of the late 1989, in a second. But they would have to be abducted and police. After the full investigation was done, the official police report says alien abduction was found. That's in the record. That's in the police record.
Whoa.
So, you know, again, make up your own mind. That's the story. That's their only testimony that you heard there. This happened with Betty Barney Hill. It's, to me, the most fascinating and the story with the most proof of alien abduction of all the stories I've ever heard.
It's funny you bring up Close Encounter of the Third Kind. Those definitions were actually the Project Blue Book came up with the classification of these types of encounters. The first kind sighting of one or more UFOs at a distance, less kind is sighting of a UFO with associated physical effects, heat, electrical interference. The third kind is sighting of an animated being, presumably an alien, but not specifically defined as such. So that's what she had. And speaking of Project Blue Book,
Right?
we have a tie-in with our next person.
Yeah, because actually Project Blue Book is a whole other story, so I think we might do like whole Project Blue Book next week. But Dr. Alan Hynek was the lead investigator, researcher on Project Blue Book, which was basically a government study into UFOs back in the 50s and 60s. And he got involved with Betty and Barney Hill and with the case they're about to talk about.
Yeah, Project Blue Book was the code name for the study of unidentified flying objects by the United States Air Force from March 1952 and was terminated December 1969. And it was headquartered at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio.
That's right.
And they collected all kinds of information on abductions and UFO sightings. It was amazing. But when they closed up shop, they closed up shop.
So they say. But one guy in particular, which I'm sure was investigated by somebody in the government, was the Felipe Cardenas, right? Gilberto, sorry. Gilberto Cardenas out of Hialeah.
Hialeah, yeah.
And he was
Right next to Oklahoma.
That's right. And in 1989, he was out for a drive. He was a Cuban immigrant. Came here with his family and had his own business. mean, as any good people would in Miami, people want sandwiches, and so they were on the way home. The car breaks down. In the car, what makes this interesting, Aaron, is in the car were witnesses. It was, I believe, some family members that were with them and friends. There were more people than there were before, but he was the only one taking. And the car breaks down. They were out checking. They opened up the hood. They looked in, and they could hear what's going on.
So it's one of those same things that everyone seems to experience if they're in a car. Is everything just shuts the dots.
Exactly.
All the lights go out, the radio turns off.
You hear that so frequently with these stories, even when there's no abduction involved. When you do a localized open, some type of electrical interference that just kills your car. And well, in the end, he ended up, his story got taken.
And then what happened?
Well, you want to know?
Yes.
Okay, sure. Because what happened next is he actually, and it's going to sound crazy, okay? But we've talked about a lot of things out here that sound crazy before, but this is his story.
Don't worry, Diener. We all know that you're a ufologist.
That's right. He tells the story, again, of Russian, where they took him, and he saw these shorter aliens. He describes this as short, many gray aliens, wearing what he described as like metallic overalls. And they took him into the ship and eventually ended up taking him underwater, which is interesting because going back to the USS Nimitz case, 2014, which started this whole congressional investigation, where the pilots saw these UFOs, UAPs in the air, and in some cases diving down into the water. But at that point, they're classified as USOs, unidentified submerged object. And so from there, Gilberto, in 1989, was talking about these crafts going underwater.
What body of water here in South Florida?
They didn't say, but I'm just going to assume somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean. Maybe.
And I saw those metallic overalls that Paris fashion.
Yeah, I was going to say, they got that fashion from somewhere.
That's true.
So he talks about going down there, and they actually, what he says, gave him predictions for things in the future, like different wars, different happenings, just, floods and things like that. And I guess there were some other things, some smaller things that have come to pass, and it's not going to pass yet. But it's pretty extreme. And then he actually got abducted a second time with his wife. They went back to the abduction site, and his wife came with him. They say at that point, that's the only voluntary abduction case on record where someone says, yes, take me here. Because normally it just ends up being the aliens saying, we're taking you whether you like it or not. And she actually said, I want to go with you. So he was abducted twice, and he talks about both of these stories, and it's really fascinating stuff. We just that you were taken down under the ocean into a secret hangar, is what he described.
Did any of the information they gave come true?
There was a couple of small things that weren't really revealed anyway from what I've read, but some of the bigger things like, California would be submerged in water, these different things that the aliens told them. Obviously, we haven't seen that happen yet, but it's
So it would have
fascinating.
been an encounter of the fourth kind because it's a human abduction by an alien.
Right.
May also include voluntary experiences.
That's right.
So
Yes.
she said, go ahead.
So for someone to be taken twice and to have, recollection both times of their encounters, it's incredible. And so the stories people was able to tell from it. Again, another thing where they didn't know what to do. I mean, after their friend got abducted, they thought, well, we can't tell the police because they're going to think we killed them or something. Or,
Right.
We're at fault here.
Escape when that happens.
Yeah, but then he came with
He
it.
was murdered. The
I
aliens.
swear, the aliens.
The encounter of the fifth kind is interesting too because it's voluntary bilateral contact between humans and extraterrestrials.
Amazing.
So that means like you're having, I guess they had their English to alien dictionary with them.
And it's funny you see that actually because the aliens, according to Gilberto, were trying to communicate with him in different language to speak. So it's being that he was a Cuban immigrant, his English wasn't very good. So they tried speaking to him first in German, then in English.
Oh, they're bilingual.
They are.
Or they're multilingual.
Yes, very much so. In German, then English, and then in Spanish, and they realized,
bingo.
Spanish, we hit that one. So they spoke to him in fluent Spanish. And there was another alien who spoke to him telepathically. according to this story.
What do you like? Press 1 for German? too?
Yes. Which one?
Oh my God, that's so fascinating.
It's an unbelievable story. It happened right here in South Florida, and that was in 1989, I believe.
Wow.
So that's, again, we could go all day on these abduction stories, but those two, to me, are really some of the more fascinating ones. There was even a doctor, Dr. Roger Lear, who, you tell me, do we have time, Gary?
Go for it.
Okay.
I want to hear about it.
If we have time to go into Dr. Roger
do.
Lear, because he dedicated his career to alien abductees. So this is fascinating because this is a guy who, just like anybody else who wanted to be a doctor,
He's like Dr. Mack.
yeah, I mean, he just went in, college, studied, university, became a podiatrist. Okay.
Oh, that's right. Yes, Dr. Lear.
Yes.
And the implants.
He's a foot doctor.
He's a podiatric surgeon.
Yeah,
It
it's
sounds a lot
podiatric.
better than a foot doctor.
So that was
Do aliens have feet?
maybe. So that was his thing.
This episode is brought to you by JCPenney. The holiday season is upon us, so your thoughts turn to gifting and JCPenney, where everybody gets more. Like for your loved one, a Southpiece collection of best-selling scents, or for home lovers who love a cast-iron Dutch oven or Keurig coffee maker, or for the kids, well, of course, JCPenney has all the toys they want. Shop in store or online. All the right gifts at all the right prices. JCPenney.
So tired.
The Subaru Share the Love event is a fulfilling way to get in a great vehicle and support a great cause. When you buy or lease a new Subaru from now until January 2nd, Subaru and its retailers will donate a minimum of $300 to charity. By the end of this year's event, Subaru will have donated nearly $320 million to charity. Visit Subaru.com/share to support a great cause today. This episode is brought to you by AWS. Amazon Q Business is the new generative AI assistant from AWS. Many tasks can make business slow, like wading through mud. Luckily, there's a faster, easier, less messy choice. Amazon Q can securely understand your business data to help you streamline tasks, like summarizing quarterly results or doing complex analyses in no time. Q got this. Learn what Amazon Q Business can do for you at aws.com/learn-more.
The rhythm of the holidays is in the air everywhere. Ring in the winter season with the enchanting universe of Amazon's creations that set the tempo for precious memories and momentous occasions. Extraordinary jewelry, watches, accessories, objects, and more hit all the right notes with a touch of magic. Shimmering with a symphony of style, these gifts shine with perfect harmony. Visit Cartier.com to shop holiday gifts.
And it just so happened as time went on, he became involved in MUFON, the UFO network. And there's different branches throughout the country. Every state has like a MUFON branch.
Do they have Foo Fighters?
They might, because if you learn, if you've been listening to UAP, Foo Fighters actually originated from World War II. That's what the pilots called Foo Fighters. I guess they feel like me, enough to call them Foo Fighters. So, Dr. Roger Lear.
Alright, give me one sec.
change it? They look at Kim Kardashian and go, what the hell?
This is talking about different little microchips, things that,
Like a tracker.
yeah, almost. And once they figured out, I would say, you know, like the little fuses you find in your Christmas lights, and if you can, it's within the plug, you have those little Christmas fuses.
Yes.
They look like that.
In fact, here's Dr. Roger Lear. He's testifying in front of former congressional members.
The individuals involved in the study all presented with no noted portal of entry for any of the objects that were removed. There was no visible scar formation, and there was no interruption of the integrity of the skin, even when examination was performed with a magnifying loupe, not only examining the area involved, but a large amount of the peripheral area. All the individuals in the study presented with positive X-rays or CT scans showing metallic or lesser dense foreign objects. Prior to the surgical procedures performed, the areas of interest were examined by the use of a Gauss meter for magnetic or electromagnetic emissions. 10 of them were found to be producing readings on a Gauss meter of 6 to 10 milligauss. That is a large amount for a very small object that varies in size from approximately 6 to 10 millimeters in length and about the diameter of a pencil lead.
And I understand, even though it's a foreign object, there's something that increases it that your body doesn't reject it.
So what they were able to do, and so fast forwarding a little bit, where Dr. Lear and a partner of his thought, we can make this smoking gun. We can get these implants out of people. We can prove that they have been abducted. Something is happening here. Like there's objects with people that they cannot explain how they got there. So after they do the organ surgeries on people, normally they would find it in their hands, between their thumb and their index finger.
Ooh, that's a tough spot.
So they would find it there or on their arm somewhere, maybe inside the arm. And what they were finding was it was covered by tissue of the body. So it was being implanted already surrounded by the abductee's tissue. That way the body wouldn't reject it or it wouldn't read it as a foreign object. It would be something that is already part of the person's body.
There is no rejection reaction. There is no, in exhaustive research of human science, there is nothing that we have found in material science that will produce absolutely no inflammatory reaction in the human body. These objects all do. Also, in addition, they are surrounded by a large amount of specialized nerve endings called proprioceptors, and these are areas which are not consistent with Gray's anatomy.
So that's how they figured anyway. The aliens got smart and said, well, let's just put it in this way. And that way it could work, it'd be, you know, wouldn't be detected, so to speak. And what they were finding, they would find these implants and they would basically see after studies, and this, now I will preface this by saying the results of these studies have been refuted by skeptics.
Discredited. Well, they must have investigated the implant.
They investigated it.
And they traced it back to Radio Shack.
No, so what they found was, and they did have Radio Shack, what they found was it was material that matched meteorites.
That's interesting.
And so now there are skeptics who say that, you know, baloney, you can find that anywhere, blah, blah, blah. Maybe it was mercury from something. So, of course, you're always going to have skeptics. But according to the findings from these studies on the implants they took out of people that they don't know how they got in their bodies, they're saying that
and these people said that they had some sort of an experience?
Yes, these were all, yeah, right. These were all abductees. Okay. And they're saying on these implants, on this hardware, it had materials you would find from a meteorite.
I'm sorry, I was abducted and I just returned and I had
okay.
time.
So it's one of those things where, and Dr. Roger Lear, I believe, passed away a few years ago, but he did a lot of work on this and worked on a lot of people who claimed they had these implants in them, and they took all these implants out. You know, and it's funny because you have skeptics who say, well, these are just, you know, pieces of glass or whatever that somebody stepped on and it went through their bloodstream and they forgot it was there. What they were taking out of people's bodies were not shards. These were little cylinders. They were strange looking. And I mean, they have to be there somehow, some way. And the question is, how and why?
About 60% presented with positive UV light fluorescence with color ranges from pink, green to yellow. One of the last surgical patients displayed a large chevron-appearing area like an insignia on the outside of the right arm near the shoulder. He had no prior knowledge of it being there. We have also found that the removal of this fluorescent material with ordinary solvents only makes them disappear for intervals of approximately 1 hour. When we re-examined again, they appear again with the use of ultraviolet light with varying frequencies. In addition, by use of radio wave frequency detector, we were able to detect that certain radio frequencies in the FM band, both in the megahertz and kilohertz range, were being emitted from the object. It was determined that in one case, the frequencies detected, and this is through a chart that I was able to obtain through sources that I will not be able to mention, but these frequencies were noted fixed or mobile deep space frequencies.
Interesting. So, in summary, the abductions and the abductees basically have similar, if not identical, stories about the light coming down from some sort of a craft above them.
Right.
And it somehow renders their car inert, and or they are taken from their bed through a wall, that type of thing.
That actually happened in New York. There was a famous case, and I forget her name, Jessica Napolitano, something like that. And but that was in the early 90s, and she said the aliens, it's terrifying when you think about it. The gray aliens came into her bedroom and took her. And there was a beam, like something you would see out of a movie, that she had a beam coming into her apartment building in New York.
Oh,
like, I mean, you're talking like Midtown, okay? And this happened, and they had witnesses to the point where, at least anyway, that there was a UN official, went unnamed, who signed with his bodyguards a written statement saying they saw this happen.
Wow.
That they saw her being taken out of the building. They saw the craft. They saw the beam of light. So there's a lot of interesting cases out there, Karen, and all of these actually, or no, I shouldn't say these specifically, but there were a lot of cases that were studied by Project Blue Book that we mentioned earlier, and Dr. Alan Hynek himself, who was the lead investigator during Project Blue Book. So maybe we can talk about Project Blue Book next week.
Yeah, which, by the way, when it was shut down, the UFO reports were archived. They're available under the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, which we use here in journalism. But names and other personal information of all witnesses have been redacted.
Mm-hmm.
And Project Blue Book was declassified, and the records are available for examination in the research room of the National Archives. So that must have been recently. That's what has been declassified.
Some of those things have been, yeah. I mean, look, there's always going to be things that people will never find out, which is why I think the congressional investigation only went back to 2004. Because look at all the stories we just spoke about.
Way before that.
60s, the 80s, the 90s. I mean, there's so much left uncovered, which is why we do the show, because we're digging up the stuff that they're not talking about.
And it's weird because this project, Project Blue Book, closed in 1969, and there's no more information on sightings after that date. But they did come up with the parameters for classifying alien encounters, as we told you. But do you want to do Project Blue Book next week, or do you have something even more tasty?
I might have something a little bit more juicy. Actually, I know I do. You want to know what it is?
Yes, let's do that.
Okay, because it's something, I'm just going to tell you the title.
Oof.
The Dulce Base Wars. This story is, out of everything we've done, even today with the abduction stories, this is like straight out of the movie Independence Day. It involves government, secret governments, contractors, secret government buildings, aliens working at getting into a firefight with soldiers. The story is unbelievable.
Okay. I like it. We're going to do that next week, so you don't want to miss us. I'm going to leave you again with Dr. Mack.
What the source of this is, who these beings are, where they come from, what creates this intelligence, I don't know. But there's something profoundly important going on here that is authentic and real.
It makes you wonder.
Head of psychiatry at Harvard.
That's right, and that's not just some guy. That's not me or you saying that. This is, like you said, head of psychiatry at Harvard.
That's why I want to end it that way.
Absolutely. So again, check out all the other episodes if you missed them. of UAP Unidentified Alien Podcast. You can find it anywhere that you find podcasts, Apple, Spotify. You can find it on the website too, 850WFTL.com, because Karen and I are on there as part of the South Florida Morning Show with Jennifer Ross and Bill Adams. You can hear us there, maybe not talking about aliens, but you hear us on that show every Monday through Friday as well, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. But for this show specifically, again, search it, Apple, Spotify, or stream it on 850WFTL.com, and find the previous episodes too. But next week, episode 6, is going to be a doozy with the Dulce Base Wars. This story is insane.
I can't wait. Don't forget to subscribe, download, give us 5 stars, extraterrestrial stars.
Do it all. Go to the extra binary system.
Binary stars.
Yes.
Give us 2 binary stars and an extra single star.
Go to the Zeta Reticuli system and give us all the stars.
There you go.
Yeah.
So that wraps it up. Thanks so much, Stephen.
Of course. So join us again next week right here on UAP, Unidentified Alien Podcast. Karen Curtis there, Stephen Diener over here. Talk to you again next time.
Text scams, identity thieves, data leaks. Hearing about these online threats every day can be stressful. But don't worry. McAfee Total Protection is here to help you live a worry-free life online. What does worry-free mean? Well, it means you won't have to wonder if that text message is a scam, if new threats will pop up on your PC, or if you're safe from identity theft. Visit McAfee.com/online protection today to get award-winning online protection for just $39.99 your first year. That's McAfee.com/online protection. Cancel anytime. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. There's nothing sweeter than baking cookies during the holidays. With Prime, I get all my ingredients delivered right to my door, fast and free, no last-minute store trips needed. And of course, I blast my favorite holiday playlist on Amazon Music. It's the ultimate soundtrack for creating unforgettable memories. From streaming to shopping, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into.
Welcome in episode 6 of the Unidentified Alien Podcast, and this is going to be a doozy. Stephen Diener here, Karen Curtis over there. Strap yourselves in for this one, because personally, Karen, I have been waiting to cover this subject since we started this show, and I've been saving it because I didn't want to do one of the, in my opinion, one of the most fascinating, incredible, fantastical stories that there is out there right off the bat. So I couldn't wait anymore. Today we're going to cover the Dulce Base and Philip Schneider.
We're going down a rabbit hole, and that was not hyperbole. This will deliver. When he told me about this, I was like, okay, whatever. And then I started listening to some of the sound from Philip Schneider.
Yeah.
And you're just gonna have to decide for yourself. It's crazy.
So, and that's a good way to put it, decide for yourself, because what we're going to do here is basically, and you know, we'll go through all the sound from Philip Schneider himself, who gave a 1-hour talk at a convention back in 1995.
Don't.
Oh, all right, I won't get too far ahead of myself, but you're going to find out today about basically how he was involved in all these blackout projects. He was a government contractor, worked a lot of different things.
Yeah, he's a U.S. government geologist.
Yes.
Engineer.
Yes.
He was involved in the construction of deep underground military bases known as DUMBs. It's like dumb, you dummy.
Yes. It's a good name. And well, the stories, eventually he got to a point where he couldn't hold back his silence anymore. And one of the main stories that he talks about that you're going to hear about today is what they refer to now as the Dulce Base War, and which is a base, an underground base, supposedly, in New Mexico, where they had quite the encounter.
Yeah, so Dulce, New Mexico is a small southwestern town. It doesn't even have a traffic light, Stephen Diener. So how can aliens even find it if it doesn't even have a traffic light?
It's it's hard to find on a map, let alone.
Yeah. Well, actually, there's American Indians live there. The what tribe?
The Jicarilla tribe, and they are out there basically, and they've talked about seeing different things, strange things, in the past, where it's kind of unexplained, it's unidentified. And those stories, the urban legends, if you will, go through generation to generation. But they've talked about seeing weird things in the Archuleta Mesa Mountains out there, and it's very odd. So it kind of goes hand in hand with what we talk about today with Philip Snyder.
Yeah, the shit's been going down for hundreds of years, and as you said, these American Indians there, and it's called the Truth or Consequences area of New Mexico. They would chronicle what they saw inside the caves, with cave drawings.
And they first saw their glimpse of what was going on as early as 1909 in the American Southwest. Army cavalry evidently were chasing some bandits, and they entered this cave. They were holed up in a cave, and what they found in there was flying discs and little gray guys and all kinds of weird things, and they didn't know how to explain that, and they wrote them down as best they could, and it's been in secret archives ever since.
That's Philip Snyder right there.
Yeah, that was him, and everything you hear today was from a, like we said, it was basically like an hour-long talk at this speaking engagement he had back in May of 1995.
Yeah, well, here's the introduction before you hear from Philip, but this is the only other person you're going to hear on this podcast other than Dina and myself and Philip Snyder.
He's a former government geologist and engineer in the Black Projects, underground bases at areas 51, S4, and Los Alamos.
So he was the real deal.
Quite the resume.
Yeah, and he, this was a guy that worked for years doing these, different government projects and had top secret clearances. So he was. I mean, if you try to look him up, it's going to be hard to find information on him, as we came to find out doing research for this episode.
That's a really good point. So I Googled Philip Snyder. It's SCHNEIDER.
Right.
And the only thing that comes up is a YouTube video that we took the sound from, and something on Pinterest. But when I went and I entered the dates of like 1995 when he gave this talk,
right,
that you're about to hear, and then something else happens after the talk, but we'll tell you in a minute.
Yes.
Nothing comes up in the news about this guy. Nothing. Zero. Nothing.
It's a little scary, and it was honestly unsettling for us because we started thinking, my gosh, kind of really half joking, we started thinking, should we even do this episode?
Right, because it's scrubbed from the interweb.
So if
maybe I'm on the wrong internet.
Maybe we have to find a different internet. So if you don't hear in episode 7, you know what happened to us. But just real quick, Karen, before we get back into this side note, you mentioned the Truth or Consequences area where some of this action took place, so to speak, where they find these aliens. That's where Richard Branson took off from when he did his Edge of Space flight, was Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. So, odd coincidence, I don't know, just saying.
Yeah, there's a lot of those odd coincidences.
Yes.
So, Philip Snyder was one of 3 people to survive the 1979 firefight between large grays, U.S. intelligence, and military at the Dulce underground base. Now, explain this, because I understand that there are supposed to be underground and underwater bases around the world, actually. Is this true?
Well, true or not, I mean, I guess, you have to make up your own mind on that, but there are a lot of testimonials to this, including from, Philip Snyder, a guy who helped to build a lot of these bases and had knowledge of these bases, and the one that he talks about and that we're covering today was, like you said, 1979, this is the incident, and we kind of, you hear us say that, encounter with aliens underground, firefight, and you're like, wait, what's happening? So, and that's the story that he kind of details here, and we're detailing for you today, is he's going down into this base in Dulce, New Mexico, and comes across these tall gray aliens and starts to open fire because he's like, what the heck am I seeing here? He's scared out of his mind. And, well, they started firing back at him. And you get
so
into
he says.
This war, right, so he says, with Green Berets involved as well. A bunch of military men died, according to his account.
And they shot his fingers off with a laser. 3
fingers missing, I think, on his left hand.
You'll see the picture of it on our Instagram page. But I have to tell you, from 50,000 feet, there's a bigger picture. He's talking about a new world order. And he's saying, these Starlink satellites that they're sending up, Elon Musk, and the 5G millimeter wave network, and the UN has unveiled plans to implement universal biometric IDs by 2030. He says that this is all part of the New World Order agenda, and he's predicting it here.
The alien agenda is the complete takeover of this planet, the killing off of 5, 6 to 7/8 of the world's population by the year 2029. U.S. military has known about this for 45 years.
Where's my
They've told no one.
Now, keep in mind, and again, whatever you want to think about the New World Order and things like that, but this is something that he was talking about in 1995. So when he's projecting to 2029, it's just kind of creepy,
Yeah,
Kinda-
because that's
kinda
only,
makes
what,
8 years from
8
now.
years from now.
1995, 2029 sounded so far away. It's not so far away now.
Yeah. Well, Phil Snyder, dare we say it? He says that he had near misses, that aliens tried to kill him multiple times.
Or government agents.
Or government agents did. He said he almost died many times at the hands of aliens and apparently of government agents as well. And he says that the government keeps us in the dark and uses a lot of taxpayer money to do so.
All information dealing with alien or alien reproduced technology or alien reproduced vehicles or any other kinds of things well hidden from the American public. Our black budget, for instance, garners $1.023 trillion every 2 years. It's over $500 billion a year. Right now, there are 131 active deep underground military bases in the United States. There's 1,477 of them worldwide. Each one has an average cost of $17 to $19 billion. Each one is built in the site, it used to be, it would take a year to 2 years to build each one, and now they're capable of building a couple of them a year with sophisticated methods.
So again, I'm going to continue to say this as we play different sound like that. This was 1995. So keep in mind when he's saying those numbers about trillions and billions and the amount of bases that there
It's
are.
like quadrillion now.
I can't even imagine the money when it comes to black ops and these, these secret budgets, if you will, that he's alleging that the government had. And again, this is a guy, this wasn't some guy, that they picked up off the street. This is a guy who had a top secret government clearances, who, if you can look back in the records, you would find that he worked on a lot of different projects that are off the books. So that's why he was also coming out saying, and we'll play the sound later on, but he's talking about how he has been hunted down, and he was hunted down by different government agents. He had former FBI agents who he befriended, who were basically trying to save his life from being killed. And he talked about a gunshot wound he had in his shoulder. I mean, these are crazy things about surviving attempted hits on his life because he was in the position that he was in, and he was the only person in that position, formerly anyway, coming out and saying things like this.
Yeah, here he is talking more about the super duper classified stuff that no one's supposed to talk about.
Here's a crystalline example. It's in the scalenohedral crystalline form. We got this from the large grays technology. This is grown in the confines of outer space, which has not quite a super vacuum, but by the way, this is capable of withstanding temperatures in excess of 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
That's hot, that's hot, that's hot, that's hot.
That's hot.
It's great for certain parts of aircraft. Now, boring machines, for instance, they don't bore, they literally vitrify and melt the rock, deflagrate the rock. It's a very sophisticated laser. Reduces the rock to a powder and then melts the remaining rock as a coating on the inside of the base, so you don't have to use gunite, cements, and other kinds of things like that. The new technology we get is the old hat of the military. I'm going to be real brief about it. I carried a level 1 security clearance, the Riley 38 Factor. There are very few of us. There's nobody except myself, to my knowledge, talking like this. Nobody. I'm breaking the law. I'm breaking world as well as federal law. I'm coming out and even talking about this to a group of people. I love my country more than I love my life. 2 weeks ago, I was shot in the shoulder.
Wow.
So again, a lot's to unpack there when you even talking about the different elements that they got from that he claims they got from the tall grays.
He knows so much, and it's hard to believe, though.
And that's the thing that really struck me and about the story because I first heard about this story years ago, and as we did more research for this episode of the podcast, it struck me again to think, how do you rattle off all those things that he rattled off about the graphite he's talking about, withstand 10,000 degrees. We heard even Paris Hilton drop in there, which she may or may not have actually been at that conference, but we'll let you decide.
But that was hot.
Okay, I have to tell you, I was just looking on eBay where I go for all kinds of things I love, and there it was.
That hologram trading card. One of the rarest, the last one I needed for my set. Shiny like the...
Designer handbag of my dreams. One of a kind. eBay had it, and now everyone's asking, ooh, where'd you get your...
Windshield wipers. eBay has all the parts that fit my car. No more annoying. Just beautiful.
Whatever you love, find it on eBay. eBay. Things people love.
Pro Paint Days are back at Lowe's. That means it's time to save big on your next job. Right now, get your choice of 5-gallon pails of Valspar Signature Ceiling Paint or HGTV Home by Sherwin-Williams Flat Ceiling Paint for just $148. Plus, get it delivered to your job site with free same-day delivery when you order by 2 p.m. Lowe's knows paint. Lowe's knows pros. Valid through December 20th. Delivery by 8 p.m. Subject to driver availability. Additional terms apply. See lowes.com/same-day delivery for details.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit Shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in places that could expose you to identity theft. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, their US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
To think that there's different materials like that where you talk about the instruments and the machines that they can use to build these underground bases, it would make sense, because otherwise how are they able to tunnel in so efficiently with just, machines that we're used to now? I mean, if he's talking about machines that are able to tunnel through and eviscerate the rock, melt the rock as it goes through, so you're not using concrete, it's basically self-sustaining construction at that point.
This is where he gets a little fantastical.
The Magneto-Leviton trains, they connect all the deep underground military bases within the United States. A Mach 2 train floats off with a single rail at a 3/4 of an inch off the rail and is what you call high-tech. We have nothing like this on the surface. The public basically has been totally lied to. We're considered stupid or even moronic in some cases. It's got to stop. If we're to gain our country back, we must instill in our public officials, anybody that goes and does public service, they must tell us the truth. If they cannot do this, then they must be impeached, or they must be removed from office.
Has he not seen Tri-Rail?
Tri-Rail doesn't levitate, Karen.
My God. I don't think it goes over about 40 miles an hour.
Right, exactly. And it's really, again, the word we used at the beginning of the show and just now that Karen said, fantastical. To think about, this is something that you would hear about in a science fiction novel or a science fiction movie, that you would see a train that goes Mach 2 underground. It uses anti-gravity technology. But if you're going with the theory, again, keeping in mind this is 1995.
And it's alien technology.
It's alien technology, and a guy who basically saying that he worked on all these projects. So if you're believing on where he came from, his past as far as his work, then this isn't a guy who's just talking out of his butt. You know what I mean? This is somebody who is basically speaking from experience. So if you combine all of that, again, you make up your own mind on whether this is just complete BS or if this guy was really speaking the truth here, 25, 26 years ago.
So I'm watching the video and I'm thinking, this guy's full of crap. And then he raises his hand up and I see he's missing fingers.
Oh, yeah.
So here's what happened in 1979 at Dulce as he was building the underground base.
During the unbelievable part, I was involved in building another base inside of Dulce, New Mexico, which is Los Alamos Laboratory. It's a biological laboratory. And when you build an underground base, you drill 4 basic holes and you literally blast out or tunnel out or deflagrate or melt rock out to build the large rooms that are required for this underground base. In this process, I was lowered down the basket of one of these holes, and about from me to this elderly woman here in the front, was sitting a 7-foot-tall alien gray. The stench was worse than the worst garbage can you can imagine. The person was or the entity was absolutely horrible. I didn't waste any time reaching for my pistol. At that time, as an engineer, I didn't have time to carry all the Folderol, one of these big submachine guns that all the sea spray and the yellow fruit and all the outer perimeter and inner perimeter security people carried. I carried a little Walther PPK pistol with a 9-shot clip. This is in late August of 1979.
Like Bond.
Now, you got a regular suit of clothes, you got a regular clothes on, plus you're in almost like a spacesuit environment, and you're reaching for a gun. It's not the easiest thing to do, and then to pop a clip in it and start shooting. And I killed 2 of them. Yes, they're mortal, and they do die. However, in the process, one of them did this. All I remember is that he just kind of waved his hand in front of his chest, and the next thing I know, this blue beam hit me and just literally opened me up like a fish. And burnt my fingers right off of me. And it was some form of electrical force, because the kind of like being hit by a lightning bolt burned all my toenails off of me. Really crispy crittered my left foot. Burnt the shoe right off of me. All I remember is the smoking remains, and I'm still conscious, but in and out of, didn't remember much. And there was a Green Beret that was right behind me that risked his life. In fact, he died. But he risked his life. He shoved me back in the dash and hit the button and took me up. And I wouldn't be alive talking to you today if it wasn't for him. I'm forever indebted. He lost his life.
So that there is really the meat of this story when it comes to the Dulce Base and the Dulce Base War, is the story he tells there from 1979 and encountering the Grays Underground. Apparently his first encounter with aliens, because, he was very shocked, obviously, and goes and shoots them, kills a couple of them, and it becomes
And they
a war.
stink.
Yeah, apparently the aliens stink, which I'd never heard before. But yeah, it really becomes like a battle, a shooting battle back and forth, and he's able to survive. Apparently, according to his story, he's the only survivor from that, and then tells it, there in 1995, recounts those details. So what's fascinating to me, Karen, is he's able to retell that story, right? You hear those details and you think, my gosh, how is it possible? Again, it sounds like something out of War of the Worlds, Tom Cruise, Orson Welles. But he's telling the story, and he also has the other elements of his experience that we spoke about too, when it comes to these different, elements that he's working with that can withstand 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit, the anti-gravity trains on the ground moving Mach 2.
Here's where he talks about the element corbamite.
In my hand here, I have a piece of what's called corbamite. It's the heaviest element in the world. Element 140. This piece of material weighs 15 ounces. It's 3.5 times the weight of uranium. It cannot be made to emit gamma rays. It cannot be isotope. It is totally stable. It is used in all stealth aircraft and all Phoenix-class submarines. When combined with other alien elements, it is impregnable. It cannot be melted with charged particle beam weapon. When properly combined in secretive compounds, it can withstand temperatures in excess of 10 million degrees Fahrenheit.
That's hot.
It is grown by aliens who have given it a good... The other side of the alien question is, some of these aliens have broken off from their mainstream and said, we're not getting a fair shake, and so this is what happens. And I'm talking about the alien graves. Some of them broken away.
Yes, he says that the underground war is ongoing. In August of 1979, he says it continues and we don't know about it, and that the militaries of the world are in constant conflict with 11 distinct races of aliens, and only 2 of them are good aliens.
Right. Which, again, if you think about these things, this is a whole different type of reality that he's referring to here, because we live our lives and we think about what's going on in the world, what's going on in politics, what's going on in sports, what's going on in our own lives. We're paying the bills, we're feeding our families, we're driving to work and sitting in traffic. This guy is talking about literally a different reality where there's conflicts and wars between aliens and militaries and all of this extremely advanced technology with elements that we've never even heard of, with the capabilities that we can't even imagine. And this was 26 years ago when he's talking about it. So it makes you wonder if he's talking about it then, in 1995, all these different things that, you know, we're capable of doing in all these underground bases. What the heck is happening now if these things are actually true?
And that's only like 10 years after we landed on the moon with, you know, a transistor
When it comes to his
radio battery.
Right, when it comes to his 1979 encounter at Dulce Base. Right.
And he goes on about the underground war.
66 Secret Service agents, Green Berets, Black Berets, crack troops lost their lives because the government, our United States government, lied, did not tell us anything about the alien threat. There's a war underneath there, and I'm talking dead serious. It's been going on since that time. Since late August of 1979, our military, the Russian military, basically the militaries of the world, have been in constant conflict with the outer space alien. The small gray, the large gray, the reptilian, the whole thing. There are 11 distinct races of aliens. 2 are benevolent. 1 had to leave here in a hurry because their world is under attack, both on the surface as well as underground there, the Pleiadians.
The Pleiadians?
Yes, I've actually heard of them.
Really?
Yes.
What the hell?
Yeah.
Do I believe this guy?
It's hard to say. I mean,
Sounds like, what was his word? Falderall.
yeah, I mean, you make up your own mind. The thing that gets to me about him, and that always got to me about this story, is how, I mean, it's going to sound strange to say this, but how credible he sounds. And
He
what
does.
What I mean by that is his attention to detail, the way that he tells the story. There's no skipping a beat. There's no pausing. There's no...
It's like he's recalling it, not making it up.
Exactly. And it's just, it makes you wonder.
Well, he also points out something interesting, Stephen, that he says, you know, what about some of our diseases, like COVID? Are these from the aliens?
Because all aliens, regardless benevolent or otherwise, they're carrying germs and diseases and bacterium in and on them that are deadly to us. If I were making policy, I'd quarantine them all. Because how do we not know that some of our diseases like AIDS, Ebola, hantavirus, and a few of these other weird designer diseases, as I call them, are not made from the cadavers of some of these aliens as a biological weapon to use against the people of the United States? Well, I'm a tired American speaking out.
Well, not anymore, because he's dead.
So we were kind of keeping that fact from you because we wanted to play everything for you first and to kind of put it into perspective. But the thing about this is you might have been wondering the entire show here today, well, where is this guy? Like,
Yeah.
you keep saying 1995.
Right.
Where is he? How come we haven't heard from him since?
Go
or heard
ahead,
about him?
Google him.
You're not going to find much. I mean, there's a book, there's our podcast,
There's a book.
there's a YouTube video, and there's something on Pinterest. Otherwise, a lot of the stuff about Philip Schneider has been scrubbed. Why, you ask?
When a vehicle is certified by Volvo, it's much more than a certified pre-owned. It's certified for that road trip you've been meaning to take. Certified for your growing family. Certified for small steps and big leaps. No matter where the road ahead may take you this season, Volvo hopes you enjoy every moment and are confident in the certified by Volvo vehicle you've trusted to take you there. Contact your Volvo retailer today.
At McDonald's, our customers' well-being is at the heart of what we do. From how we source our food to how we deliver quality in our restaurants. And it's made possible by thousands of hardworking crew, suppliers, and the small business owners who own and operate our restaurants. Every day we help them meet the highest standards for our customers. Our commitment will never change. We will always do the right thing.
Looking for a pickup truck to get just about anything done? Look no further. The Chevy Silverado EV isn't just the most powerful Silverado ever, with next-level towing capability and technology. It It also offers game-changing versatility with the available multi-flex midgate and tailgate, which means Silverado EV helps you carry large, bulky, and oddly shaped items up to nearly 11 feet in length. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive. Visit Chevrolet.com to learn more.
Thursday.
So, you want to be a marketer. It's easy. You just have to score a ton of leads and figure out a way to turn them all into customers. Plus, manage a dozen channels, write a million blogs, and launch 100 campaigns all at once. When that's done, simply make your socials go viral and bring in record profits. No sweat. Okay, fine. It's a lot of sweat. But with HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools, launching benchmark-breaking campaigns is easier than ever. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
Well, Karen, I'll tell you why. Because
He's dead.
Was found dead 6 or 7 months after that speech took place. That speech took place in May of 1995, the one that we were playing today.
So he was a dead man talking.
Yeah, essentially. And I mean, it's kind of spooky. It's a little bit chilling when you think back to some of the clips that we played when he talks about how he was shot in the shoulder. He's had many attempts on his life. And then, coincidentally, air quotes, 7 months later, in January of 1996, he's found dead in his home, strangled to death with a piano wire.
Just like in, remember the movie Marathon Man, and Roy Scheider is strangled to death with a piano wire?
Right.
It cuts the throat.
That's right. And one of the things, again, what they found, foul play was always suspected. Of course, they called it a suicide because, you know, why not? And that's what they want you to think when somebody like that gets killed. So officially, that's what they say. But there was very distinct marks of torture when it came to Philip Schneider's body being found. There was a lot of signs of struggle, a lot of signs of a violent death, so to speak.
Yeah, and at the time this guy, Philip Schneider, was the only one brave enough to talk about Elvis Presley.
After the great firefight, the Alien-Human War, I am the only living survivor talking about it worldwide at all. Only one. The other two are in nursing homes in Canada, and the Canadian government refuses to allow any U.S. people, including myself, to talk to them.
And now he's dead, and now Stephen and I, no, AOC, are talking about it. I'm not going to identify myself anymore because I don't want to get the piano wire around the neck.
Right.
I have a little neck.
It's scary. It is.
It is scary.
And that's why, I mean, look, you know, not that I'm saying that it's really think it's going to happen, but it is a little frightening to think that this guy was essentially killed. Again, they say suicide. Let's be honest here.
Suicide with a piano wire?
Yeah, I mean,
really?
He's found basically tortured and beaten.
Oh yeah, he was tortured.
Right, with piano wire wrapped around his neck. So let's be honest here. This was most likely not a suicide. So it's a little unsettling when we go and do this show. We try to find, for this particular episode, we tried to find information.
I did. I was like, well, let me, just double. I'm a news person, so I wanted to double check some of this stuff.
And it's hard to find the information on this guy and on his death and on the things that he's talking about here. I was lucky to find his YouTube video where we could get his words, his explanation of everything, not only from the Dulce Base War in 1979, of August 1979, but also from all the other findings that he talked about, like the technology that we went into on this episode. It's extremely fascinating.
And if you downloaded this podcast, they can track you now.
No, Karen, no! Don't say those things. It's okay. It's gonna be fine. Don't worry. So, but like I said, if there's no episode 7, then you know what happened to us.
He also said, and I did not know this, my dad, and I didn't know, my dad had a really high IQ. My mom, when I was little, she's like, your dad has a very high IQ. And I found out recently he was tested multiple times at Central Michigan, and his IQ is like 197. He's top 1% of Mensa. But that aliens have an IQ in the thousands.
Right.
Here's our friend Phil.
My question I'd like to ask is this. If the aliens have a 1,200 IQ, can speak all these languages, and are so powerful, what prevents them from just taking over?
Well, that's a good question. Basically, they have taken over. All that's left is a bunch of screaming, a bunch of us that have been very complacent. Half of the 131 deep underground military bases are basic cities for them. Right underneath our feet is a macabre sight indeed. You can bet your bottom dollar they've already basically won the war.
So again, this is 1995.
Lovely.
And it makes you wonder, well, if that's the case, because it was a good question. I'm sure maybe you were wondering that as well, the question that guy asked, because he was in front of a small group in a conference hall when Philip Schneider had this talk, back 26 years ago. And after he was done, as you can hear, he took some questions from the audience that day. And it's probably a question you were asking yourself. Well, if that's the case, hey guys, when you're talking about, if he's talking about this in 1995, we're doing okay in 2021, so why haven't they taken over? Well,
They already have.
that was his answer, and again,
It explains a lot.
well, and what do you believe? Because what I found interesting too, Karen, was when he talks about the diseases. That really struck me when we were doing the research for this episode, and we grabbed that clip there, because of course what we think about today is COVID. Now, in 1995, he's talking about AIDS, he's talking about Ebola and different things like that, because those were on the tip of everybody's tongue in 1995, especially HIV and AIDS.
Right.
Now, the thing on everybody's mind in 2021 is COVID. So it kind of...
And was it engineered?
It makes you wonder, and it kind of sends a chill down my spine when I heard that clip in the research for this, where he says, you have to ask yourself the question, are some of these diseases man-made from the bodies, from the dead bodies, the cadavers of aliens? Because apparently they carry disease, which I never really thought about before.
And we kill them too with our diseases, according to Phil Schneider.
According to his stories, right?
Well, some sources allege that horrific genetic experiments are conducted in the lower levels of this facility in Dulce, and that these levels are sometimes referred to as Nightmare Hall.
That's not a company name.
Ugh.
Because they're doing human and animal experiments, from what I've heard anyway.
And according to the legend, Project Aquarius in 1966 was a plan for investigation of UFOs carried out and funded by the CIA. Project Aquarius was slated to begin December 1969, and Project Grudge and Project Blue Book, which we talked about last week, were closed. And in 1969, the base was built northwest of Dulce in joint agreement between the CIA, aliens, and I guess other governments? I don't know. It's allegedly located in the the Jicarilla?
The Jicarilla.
Jicarilla, excuse me, Apache Indian Reservation. So, and the base gets its water and electricity from the Navajo River and dumps wastewater back into the same river. So who knows what's going on with that? And the government occupies upper levels of the underground base, while the aliens control the lower levels.
Right.
But it's all secret now.
Right, and that's something that is important to note too, because there's stories of, cooperation between the governments and the aliens, how they work together. They allow them to do these experiments, and sometimes, things don't go very well. And look...
And they have strange sightings, they see moving lights, and then you've got the mutilation of some of the animals there, right?
Yeah, that's right, the cows, and that's always very strange.
I know, it looks so perfect, and so...
the way that things are cut
no
out.
blood.
Yeah.
So weird.
It's very precise. And look, we don't want to come on here and sound like crazy conspiracy tin hat oil people. It's just, we're giving you the information that, Philip Schneider gave in 1995. We're presenting that to you, and then we kind of think from there. Look, think about it yourself. I mean, if he's talking about, like we said, these different diseases, I'm not sitting here saying that this is where COVID came from alien bodies, but it made me think. It struck me because of the time that we live in, where he's talking about they carry these diseases, and made him wonder, are some of these diseases that come about, are they man-made from the cadavers of aliens? It might seem far-fetched, maybe it is. But it's something that maybe you make that leap yourself, and you have those own thoughts, come to your own conclusions. That's what we always like to do here on Unidentified Alien Podcast, is we give you the information, we give you the story, how it was presented from the people who experienced it, and make up your own mind. And in this case today, it's really one of the most unbelievable, fantastical things that I think we're probably ever going to cover on this show. It's wild. It really is. Everything about this is wild.
I'm not sure what to think, but when you first told me about it and I first started looking into it, I thought, this guy's full of it. And then you start listening to him and you see his fingers are gone.
His fingers are gone,
And,
yeah.
and then you find out he's dead
Right.
right after he gives this speech. Some of this is a real head scratcher for me.
I mean, I hate to say it, he was seemingly Epstein. Let's be honest. This is the guy who, I mean, you heard the sound there earlier in the show where he says, they don't want me talking about this. I'm the only person in the world who was in this position and saw these things and experienced these things, coming out and talking about these things. I'm breaking federal law by doing this.
International law.
International law. And, well, 7 months later, he's found dead with piano wire around his neck. So if he was, let's just say, before we go here today, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, he was a complete quack, right? And he just total non-threat, made everything up.
Then he'd be all over the internet.
Then, right, he'd still be alive today talking about it because he would pose no threat. But if he did have some type of semblance of truth to something that he's talking about in anything, in any aspect that he was talking about, it would make sense that he's being hunted down the way that he was, and he described being shot, being saved a couple times, and then eventually killed in January of 1996. Why else would they be going after this guy if he didn't have some type of information that they didn't want him getting out?
And he's completely scrubbed from the internet. It's amazing.
It's hard to find information.
So next week, we're going to talk about another really weird one.
Yes.
You showed me this photo that was taken in England, and even Kodak got involved trying to investigate this photograph. I thought that's how then Paul McCartney met Linda, because she was from the Kodak family.
I don't think so. Maybe we'll find out, though, because, you know, we're glad we can give you the information on this, all this wild stuff today on episode 6 of the Unidentified Alien Podcast. But, and again, make up your own minds. If you want, you can try to find more information, but it's not easy.
Yeah, go for it. If you do, let us know.
But next week on episode 7, we are going to get into another one of my favorites, the Solway Firth Spaceman.
Right.
And
Some
it's
guy just taking a picture of his kid.
photographic evidence. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Pretty wild stuff, and we'll get into that next week. But don't forget, for every other episode, if you missed any of the previous episodes of UAP, Unidentified Alien Podcast, you can always find it Apple, Spotify, wherever you look for podcasts, on 850WFTL.com, where the show airs as well. You can find it there streaming all the previous episodes. Karen and I are on the South Florida Morning Show every Monday through Friday, 6 to 10 a.m. with Jennifer Ross and Bill Adams, so you hear us there as well. Not necessarily talking about aliens.
No, because they wouldn't allow it.
Sometimes we do, but for the most part, you're going to hear the deep dive on UAP. So
Yeah, and make sure you subscribe so the aliens can find you. And the government.
No, subscribe so you can get all the latest episodes. So subscribe, download it, rate it, and you can find us again anywhere you look for podcasts. All the previous episodes right there. So don't forget to check those out.
Well, Stephen Dieter, mind blown.
Yeah, mine too.
Thank you so much for listening.
Talk to you again next week on UAP, Unidentified Alien Podcast. The Solway Firth Spaceman coming up in episode 7. Until then, Karen Kerr is there, Stephen Dieter here. Be well. We'll talk to you next time.
If we're still alive.
I've got a lot of grandbabies, like a lot. And when it comes to finding a gift,
Bye guys. Where I turn it off. Bye mom. See you in the morning.